It's been described as a bit of a hybrid aircraft, like a cross between a plane and a chopper. How does that sort of emerge while you're in the air?
Absolutely. Look, it looks and feels very much like something you would see in a movie, like Avatar, for example. It comes in at pace, and then the tilt rotors go from being a helicopter. They then go forward in 12 seconds, and then it becomes an aircraft. There's certainly a surge of power. It is a very powerful hybrid chopper plane, and that's the way it's designed. It has got a lot of safety features. It has had a bit of a checkered history. I think there's been 8 crashes since it came fully in service in 2007. But I guess any crash or any incident will be investigated and adjustments made if there is a design fault.
What is the purpose of having this sort of hybrid helicopter/plane? What's the advantage of it?
Oh, look, the advantage is absolutely its vertical takeoff and landing. The ability for it to do that, it did it very successfully during the Afghanistan conflict. It was also there in Iraq. I think in Afghanistan it delivered something like 1,000 troops into the Helmand Province at speed. Again, this is something, and if you know a war zone, a plane comes down like that. It's a natural target that can be tracked. With these, of course, a very fast helicopter aircraft goes like that and then can drop down very, very quickly. So it can travel very fast. It can carry very big payloads. It can tow things or carry things under its belly. Can deliver 25 soldiers, up to 30 soldiers if they're sitting in the aisles at any one time. It carries a lot of gear. Its speed, its versatility, from a combat tactical point of view, it's highly valued.
I think you were saying too in your video that you get an oxygen mask which lasts 3 minutes, and that's because there is that fear that you could dive into the ocean, isn't there?
Look, there absolutely was, and I have to say I was a bit surprised. They handed me a set of goggles which were very much just your average Joe snorkel goggles, which I couldn't work out what they were for. I was wearing ballistic sunglasses anyway, but no, the goggles go on, and I asked the guy, well, you know, what's with the goggles? Oh, that's when we go in the water, just in case. The oxygen tank, 3 minutes. Obviously, that is attached to your life vest. So when you put the life vest on, there is this cylinder next to you with a mask underneath the flap to be used. And of course, that is if it goes in the drink. We're obviously going over the Sulu Sea. It can be quite rough, that particular sea off the Filipino coast, off the Philippines there. So it's a precaution. And they said, yeah, you have 3 minutes if it goes in the drink to get out. Whatever you do, and there was the instruction that they reinforced with us, is do not inflate your life jacket, because then you'll go to the top of the aircraft and you won't be able to get out the hatchway. There's 3 hatchways on the chopper as well, so it's made for, I guess, safety in that regard if it does go in the water. We flew with the ramp down at the rear, which a lot of aircraft, C-130s particularly do. And in this case, we flew with the ramp down at the back of the chopper as well, and then landed on the deck of a helicopter aircraft carrier.
And this, being on this exercise for a piece you're writing, no doubt, can you inform us of that, or do we need to find that out in due course?
No, absolutely. Look, it was an exercise that was months in the planning between the Filipinos and the Australian forces, Australian Armed Forces. It was 1st Regiment, 1st Battalion Regiment. For the Filipinos, it was their Marines, and it was really to get that interoperability with the Filipinos, to get their tactics, to get their techniques, to ensure that we can fight along the same level playing field, as they're a very close ally, a very important ally, obviously bordering the South China Sea. And coincidentally, obviously, while we were there's been a couple of incidences between the Chinese and the Filipino Navy there on the South China Sea. And of course, the government is close to announcing the fact that the Australian Defence Force, the Royal Australian Navy specifically, will have a presence on the South China Sea in the form of some sort of joint patrol, again with the Filipinos. So it was very much a timely exercise, which seemed to coincide with all these other events, as there's always events incidents on the South China Sea, as you know. There's always incidences there, whether it's water cannons or laser beams or warnings to get out of that area. So it was a very critical exercise and a very timely exercise.
Now, just finally, and you alluded to this before, I mean, it's the second fatal crash involving an Osprey in Australia. The other was in 2017, also killed 3 US Marines. Do you think there are genuine safety concerns over this particular model, or it's more an example of just these exercises are in warlike conditions and there is danger attached to them?
I think it's more the latter. I think there is a great danger in anything you do with the military. There is always that risk. You're playing with very big toys. You're playing with obviously weapons as well in some cases. So I think there is always that inherent risk in any operations you do, and they're pushing the envelope. I don't know about this circumstance. I'll flag that, but generally you're pushing the envelope. You're in a tactical situation, albeit for training, so you do push things quite tightly. Look, the aircraft has had a lot of issues. They've ironed out a lot of issues, certainly between 2000 and 2007, when it was in its trial phase. A lot of things were ironed out. It's very powerful. I spoke to one of the pilots of this aircraft, and of course, just to highlight as well, this is not an Australian aircraft. We don't have the Osprey. We use the US Marines. So they pilot it, they do all the maintenance for it, they understand that aircraft. And they will tell you, it's a very powerful aircraft. It has a lot of moving parts at the same time. If you can imagine flying an aircraft and a helicopter virtually at the same time, or certainly transitioning between one and the other. It's a very complicated, a very complex piece of aircraft, takes very specialist training, which they do. And unfortunately, I genuinely believe this was just a tragic accident.
Charles Miranda from the Daily Telegraph, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Andrew.